but we grinded higher throughout the day. And actually, there was some good action individually in stocks. So even though we finished down on the day slightly, or maybe flat, there was really good action in individual stocks. It was a very grindy day, meaning like you weren't necessarily, if you're like a breakout guy, for example, right? So there's breakout markets, and then there's, retracement, reversion to the mean markets. So what I mean is, like, if you're like a breakout guy, then you probably wouldn't have, you'd just be getting chopped up, right? Because you're like kind of going like this. Those grindy kind of days can be like that. What you got to just be mindful of is, to get a little bit better locations, because you're not getting necessarily that big oomph in terms of breakouts. But there was a lot of positive action. Even when the market gapped down, a lot of stocks started to rebound, like first tick. And that's a good sign for the market. It's telling you that there's a change in price action that's happening. And that's something to just be super mindful of, as we go forward, that there is a subtle shift that's happening in the price action out of a lot of individual names, and that they're handling the dips in the market much better. And that's something, right? That's something that, we will have to, watch very, very closely as we start to go. But there's going to be, there's some damn good stuff going on here. So let's take a look. I think that today is going to be a risk-on type of thing in the table. The cryptos are strong. You got EV companies hanging, all sorts of stuff. Let's take a look at the earnings plays, and then let's move from there. We'll take a look at, some of the cryptos and stuff like that. There's some fucking heaters hanging out in the crypto market right now. I think that, we should be probably playing. Space, it looks like they just announced some news. They got some new plane running around. Who knows, right? But this thing has, been left for dead. It was $65. It followed the trajectory of almost like all the other stocks that are like SPACs and stuff. I think this one looks pretty good. Let's add that to the list. Space doesn't work as well on ORBs for some reason. It does work pretty well though on pullbacks. Let's get that going. Children's Place. It's a tiny float on this thing. You got swings to fiscal adjusted earnings. Do you guys remember Children's Palace? It was like the wannabe Toys R Us. That place was fucking epic. But this is, I don't believe the same thing, but whatever. He's got a hot breakout here. You're up about 14%. We'll have to let this thing pull back at the open. In general, retail stocks, like you don't want to chase them off like the first tick or whatever. So, we want to make sure this thing pulls back 90 EMA, 20 EMA. But I do like the overall look of it. It's actually had some really good, range, really this whole like last couple, week or so. So I think that one will be fine. This LO's going right into resistance pass. ETHE, man. Hey, with the run on, the coins and stuff, today, the last few days, like while the crypto market's been pulling back, Riot's actually been holding up at the 200 SMA. And if you go here, like you have a really nice location here around 27. I think if you get over that 27 spot, and, you have your 9 EMA there on the daily, you have multiple levels of support that you could just like bust through and maybe start a little bit of a squeeze. It could happen. We're a little bit of ways away, but we're only a buck or so. I would watch for a little tightening up of that range. You've got multiple time frames that are holding out. And it's the same thing with this MAR. Like it never broke under the 200 SMA. It's retraced about 70%, 60-70% of its gains anyways. Now you're coming all the way back. You got a 3-day range break here, and then you got your 9 EMA on top. So probably about 24. I like it. I would add both of those. Today could be the day they squeeze. Yeah, Can's on the 200 SMA too, but it's a giant turd. BTBT's even a bigger turd. Yeah, pass. Run is actually holding up pretty well. It's got a bottoming pattern at the moment. You've kind of come through. I would say so. May 12th. So you got May 12th, 13, 14, 15. So you got about a 10-day range break happening over here. A 10-day range break. Not sure, Blizzy. Does your Google not work? Did your Google break? Sorry. I'm just teasing. 1, 2, 3. I had to. 42. Look, if this pulls back at the open, I think we probably try this one. Maybe let this thing squeeze into the 46 spot. I'd add run to the list too. It's a humble hit piece. It's only down a penny, no? Not sure. Humble hit piece. It's down 1 penny and it's 80-cent stock. Not sure if that does anything. Dun, 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 dun. Viac. Man, this thing is rounded, but this thing trades like shit. Pass. Hey, EVs, they are hanging. This one's got a range break. Any tap back at the open, 1260. Let's roll in on this one. I think this one looks pretty good. My ride is having a down day, but you're running right into big resistance here. It's getting a little bit parabolic. This one probably needs to pull back, but I think FSR, you got just starting its kind of run here. I think we got a good location. I wouldn't chase this up at the open, but this thing it's got a nice spot. Add it. I would add all of these for today if they start to hold. You got nickel on a breakout pullback into old support here. This one also may have a little bit of a chance. As long as it holds, I would say about 1250, give or take. And then, CCIV, which is nearly impossible to trade lately. It had after that big day an inside day, and now you're starting to kind of creep out. So usually when you have this kind of, this kind of motion, and then the next day, you're like, have a really, really tight range. Do you see how the range was like 25 cents yesterday? So you got a big range day, then you get this like just tiny, tight range the next day. As long as we can hold over 19, this actually has a shot to get going, and then we'll see what's up on this one. But I like the overall look of it. There's a million stocks that look like this, by the way. I mean, there's not a single one that you just can't say, like, they all kind of have that same flavor, where like you're starting to like round, but you're still over like levels of resistance. The depth of this last 2 months of pullback in the market has left so many charts broken that there's booby traps everywhere when you're trading them. So you can have something that looks like it's rounding, but there's just so many levels of supply over top that they make them tricky. It's really, that's why the best stocks, like after big dumps, they have those like months-long bases. Because what happens when you have like a multi-month base is the EMAs get right on top of the stock. So you break over all of them in the first move, the primary move. Where like if you have like a very short base, then you have, your moving averages are every step of the way, and you've got, levels of supply. But you ever see a stock that's got like just an epic base that it comes out of? All the MAs will be like all conjoined at the same place. So when you thrust over it and do a base breakout, you break all of it in one day. And that's what kind of creates like those big squeezes. And so these are like a little bit more tricky. Your SQs and Pelotons and, stuff like that. And this Peloton does have a nice range break too. I just got so used to shorting this thing. But you have like a nice easy spot here at 98. I would keep this on the list. Keep it on the list. See if that 98 holds. You're right, D-Mac. That one looks pretty good. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Yeah, Billy Turd. You know, even QS is kind of bottoming, but you just got a lot of levels of supply. A lot of levels of supply. Donkey Kong's like the same thing. Yeah, so we'll have to be a little bit careful on these. But I think on the downside, you've got, I don't know what this black diamond is. Not enough liquidity. BJ. Man, this thing is gapping down right into like kind of no man's land. Keeps guidance, uncertainty, keeps guidance on home, blah, blah, blah. I don't know about this one. It's kind of gapping down into no man's land, and it doesn't have much liquidity. Beaky. Was Beaky earnings, or did they have a dilution? I think it was probably earnings. I thought maybe they did a dilution because the volume is so big on it. Whatever. It's got a nice breakdown over here regardless. I like this one. What do you think? I think especially if you break under that next low, it's going to be hot. Yeah, I don't know what's up with Ride. I didn't see any news on it, but I think it is a little bit extended. It probably needs a day or two to pull back regardless. Coles. You could add Coles into... You could add Coles to the list. I don't like trading retail stocks. I mean, just adding this PLCE was... It took a lot for me to do that. This one's got a lot better range. Coles, I didn't have any luck with it. It does have a nice little breakdown over here. You could probably roll with it. Hey, man, my mom shops at Kohl's. Yeah, people go there, air balls. Indian people love Kohl's. We love Kohl's, we love Big Lots. That's our thing. Dash, there's an upgrade. You know, Dash has got a nice chart for the most part. You've got a 3-day flag here. You know, you need to trade around these levels of, it's kind of like 132 to 142. You know, you've got about a 10-point range that needs to be traded around. But in general, if it starts to push its way out of there, I do think that one's probably one that's going to have a little squeeze on it. Cisco's got earnings out too. Man, Cisco's a tough noodle to trade too. I haven't traded this since the frickin' early 2000s. 80 shares times 8. Good. I think that, yeah, this one's going to be a little bit too tricky for me. I'd roll with Beaky. That one's probably going to trade okay. Even BJ is probably going to be a little bit better, but the lack of liquidity on that one's going to be tough for a short. AMC's a turd. AMC's a gigantic turd, I should say. Alright. Now let's just roll through here let's roll through here real quick. We did have a big dump in crypto yesterday. It was kind of awesome. You know, we had to run right into the 200S. We shot actually 8,000 under the 200-day moving average. And you know what? We had a longer-term rollover pattern here anyways. I know people are saying like Elon Musk started it, but if you really look here, I mean, this is a rollover pattern in any sense of the term, you know, and it did. We added a bunch of stuff yesterday. We'll see what happens. The ones that, you know, I'm currently in, I got this ETH. I believe I got a 2175 average. It's a very simple. All you got when you get these parabolics, you know, all you got to do is you just wait for a green candle to hold, put a stop under the lows, and then, you know, the first spike you always got to sell it off, and then when you come back in for the double bottom, that's actually it's a little bit of a slower trade, but that's a little bit more confirmation, you know, so you can reload back in. So we're in this ETH. I had a boatload of this link twice yesterday, you know, so you had the same kind of thing, right? You got this parabolic flush. When you get the first green candle to hold, take it, put a stop under the lows. I had about 25 here, give or take. It had ended up with a nice day, and then it pulled all the way back. And so last night we reloaded here into the double bottom. So far it's holding up here. There's a couple other ones here that are sitting on the 200 SMA. This Adam's got probably maybe $3-4 of upside. I wouldn't chase anything. I mean, this was a once in a year kind of opportunity to just scoop low. But you don't want to chase because these are breakdown charts. But it was, you got to always keep your eyes open, guys, because when you get these kind of movements, I mean, you got to be ready. You got to have cash on hand, cash in the bank, your ACH, your wires all ready to go. And when it's time, you just got to go for it, even if you've got to take some heat, because that's, you end up with, months and months of return in, sometimes a day or two. It can be a little bit tricky and a little bit nerve-wracking, but that's just, that's trading in a nutshell, right? So these all look okay. I think probably Ethereum, we get a bounce up into maybe 3,200 or something. Link, maybe 36, 37, 38. I'd be surprised if they just bust back towards highs due to the location and the nature of these, moves down. And it wasn't a one-day crash. I mean, they've been really grinding down for over a week. So this could be a dead cat bounce for all we know. It's going to take weeks and weeks to really repair this kind of technical damage. So, in the meantime, we're playing an oversold bounce, essentially. That's all it is, an oversold bounce. But it's not necessarily an investment type of position. You had a lot of these already. Like, see, this thing got down to 17. I mean, it ripped up to 30. I mean, it's a double almost in a day. So now you're in a much more precarious, is that the proper word? Spot. A double in a couple days. And there's a lot of these. See, this thing got to 16. 28. It's almost 75% gain. So you got to be a little bit careful, kind of chasing them up. But the pullbacks, I think, as long as, see where this is a 15-minute chart, as long as the intraday pullbacks are holding, then I guess we roll. We roll and we roll hard. Some other stocks to look at, JMIA, I think, is already starting to push. You've got a little bit of a range break. I wouldn't be surprised if you tap the 200-day moving average today. DDD is also going to be a daily trader for us, at least till probably about 34, 35. And then I would add all the solars and all the EVs. It seems like some of these oversold ones are getting picked up. We've got Peloton here over 98. And then UPST, I think, is probably going to be a daily trader for a little bit too. That's the list. BTX is very tricky to short because it's already down so much. $81. 17, what's the reward on that? I think that probably in BTX, if you got a big push into 34, 35s or something, you'd have a little bit more reward. This is as oversold as you can really get. One of these days, they're going to just put out some kind of pumpy PR and get this thing moving again, and you're going to see this thing squeeze probably $4 or $5. When? Who knows? It's hard playing for those, though, because, you can do that. You can do that over and over. What is that going to happen to? So, phase, we got space. We got place. We got Riot. Remember these levels. 26.75 on Riot. 24 on Mara. And we got Beaky. I'd add Run also. And then we got all these kind of EV companies. You got your CCIVs and, shit like that. Spaceballs is back in action after a long break. We'll see if it squeezes. I would not chase space up 20% though at the open. You got to let that thing pull back. Space is the worst on when you buy high. But man, when it wants to go, it really will go. That's the list. I'm sticking to it. Beaky, do you love me? Do you want me? We got Riot. We got the Riot. We got the Mara. We got the Boots. We got the Coots. At FSR too. I think we're in a good spot now. Beaky, do you love me? Good. That's the list. I'm sticking to it.